Have you ever spent weeks, maybe even months, just setting up a quality management system before you can even think about starting a project? Well, we're about to see how a QA trial can shrink that timeline down to just a few minutes. Let's dive right in.
So, first things first, let's talk about the problem we're actually solving here. Kicking off a new project in a regulated industry, it's not as simple as creating a new folder. It's like building this incredibly complex web of documents, standards, and procedures all before you write a single line of code or run one test. It is a massive upfront headache.
So, does this whole scenario sound a little too familiar? You're just staring at a blank screen, a blank slate, and you know you have to build out an entire quality system. One that's got to satisfy regulators, auditors, your own team. I mean, where do you even start? It's a challenge that folks in pharma, MedTech, you name it, they know this feeling all too well.
And this really shows the contrast perfectly. You've got the old way, we're talking weeks of manual work, hunting down templates, racking up high costs, and then you've got the QAtrial way, a guided setup, ready in minutes, with intelligence just built right in. The difference in time, effort, and just plain frustration, it's staggering.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, the installation. This is usually the first big hurdle, right? But here, it's designed to be completely frictionless. No complex server stuff, no drama, just easy.
And when I say frictionless, I really mean it. You literally run one single command in your terminal. Then you hop over to your web browser and register your first admin account. That's it, you're in. It's that simple.
And this is where things get really impressive. There's no database to configure, no Docker containers to manage, no messy environment variables to set. QAtrial is a completely browser-based solution, which just makes getting started incredibly simple.
So once you're in, you're greeted by the 6-step Smart Wizard. And this is the absolute heart of the rapid setup process. To really see how it works, we're going to walk through a specific case study from the source material.
So for example, let's imagine we're a US-based medical device company, and we need to set up a brand new project to validate the firmware for, say, a Class 2 infusion pump. This is a super common, totally realistic scenario, which makes it the perfect way to see this wizard in action.
The wizard is going to guide us through these 6 logical steps. And with each choice we make, it's going to layer on more specific, more relevant compliance content into our final workspace. Let's start with step 1 and see how this all comes together.
First up, we just choose our country. For this case study, we'll pick the United States. Now, I know it seems like a really small step, but you're about to see just how powerful this one little click really is.
And boom, with that one click, QAtrial has already loaded all the FDA-centric templates we need. It's pulled in requirements from 21 CFR Part 11 and the new Quality Management System regulation. That's a huge amount of work. I mean, we're talking days of research and doc prep, just done in an instant.
Okay, next, we add another layer of smarts by selecting our industry. So in this case, we'll choose medical devices. This immediately narrows the focus from general US regulations right down to the specific standards that actually govern our field.
And with that click, we've automatically pulled in core international standards like ISO 1345 for quality management, IEC 6304 for the software lifecycle, and ISO 14971 for risk management. And get this, it even includes relevant EU references, because the system is smart enough to know that a lot of US medical device companies also sell in Europe.
Step 3 is super easy. It's just filling in some basic project info. As you can see, only the project name is actually required. The rest is optional, but it's really helpful for reports and just keeping things organized. Nice and simple.
All right, in step 4, we get even more specific with the type of project. See, we're not just a medical device company. We're doing firmware validation. So we'll select embedded/IoT. This adds yet another layer of highly specific templates, this time all about hardware and software integration testing.
Next, we get to choose from 15 of these composable quality modules. You can think of them like pre-built packages of requirements and tests. For this project, we'll select the essentials, right? Things like audit trail, e-signatures, CAPA, which stands for Corrective and Preventive Actions, and of course validation, or CSV, for computer system validation. This lets us perfectly tailor the workspace to our exact project needs.
And finally, the last step before we hit go is the preview. This is where we see everything the Smart Wizard has put together based on our choices. We get a full, transparent list of all the requirements and tests that are about to be generated.
And the results are? Well, they're pretty amazing.
Based on just those few simple clicks, the system is ready to generate anywhere from 40 to 80 context-aware, regulatory-specific requirements, complete with pre-linked tests. We can even go through and deselect any that don't quite fit before we finalize. Total control.
We click Create Project, and that's it. In a blink, our workspace is ready. We're not starting from scratch. We are starting with a fully compliant and functional foundation for our entire project.
And there it is. Our regulatory-aware workspace is ready to go. You know, the leap from an empty command line to this, it just fundamentally changes the starting line for any regulated project. It's a total game changer.
So what's next? Well, you can immediately jump in and start reviewing those auto-generated requirements, check out the test cases that have already been pre-linked for you, explore the compliance dashboard to see your starting readiness score, and even configure an optional AI copilot to help with things like test generation and risk analysis. You hit the ground running.
So let's just recap the core value here for a second. What we've just witnessed is a process that compresses what would traditionally take weeks of planning, configuration, and documentation into just a few minutes of guided clicks. You know, I think this quote from the source material just sums it up perfectly. In about 10 minutes, you went from a fresh installation to a workspace with dozens of regulatory-aware requirements, linked test cases, risk metadata, and compliance infrastructure. That's the entire setup, from end to end. Incredible.
Look, QAtrial provides that compliant framework so your team can focus on what they actually do best, innovating. So the question's pretty simple. Are you ready to trade all those weeks of tedious setup for a few minutes of smart, guided configuration?